So on behalf of the Connecticut River Valley Chamber, welcome everybody to our Tuesday morning um, coffee and our kicking off our week. Again, another week at home. I want to share with you what's going on with the Chamber this week. So we have our Connecting Over Coffee Now. Wednesday, tomorrow, we have our virtual leads group at noon. And that's also facilitated by Mike Ski. On Friday, we have Pullman and Cumley is putting on a seminar for us at 11 o'clock, reopening Connecticut and bringing employees back into the workplace. So that's a major law firm in Hartford. And I think it will be a very valuable investment of 1 hour for everybody who's opening their business. Then we, as a chamber, are holding a couple more industry reopening masterminds. So we have restaurants and retailers on Wednesday at 10 o'clock and nonprofit organizations on Thursday at noon. And what we've been doing is just sharing ideas, best practices. We've fortunately had some elected officials and attorneys and some experts involved in those conversations. And they've been very, very helpful to the participants. So join us at those. And this morning, we have an awesome guest, Shyam, who's going to introduce himself because he has too many things to write down and talk to you about. But I want to just welcome you today, Shyam.
Thanks so much. Yeah. By the way, it's Shyam.
Shyam.
My parents threw the Y in. Everybody's been screwing it up for a long time, but I don't blame anyone. No problem. No problem. Yep. Shyam. I am out here in Florida actually right now, working on one of my projects, which is a company called Peel. And we're working on some botanical vodkas that we're getting ready we were supposed to launch back in March, but unfortunately because of COVID, things got delayed, and we're getting ready to launch those in July. Basically in Connecticut, the things I have my hands in, I have an FDA food manufacturing facility and an OTC drug manufacturing facility. And both of those permits are for a building that we have in East Hartford. And over there, we make flavorings for beverages. And we're working on a couple other projects as well. And then out in New Britain, I have a distillery, and that's where the brand Peel is made. And we're getting ready to launch some vodkas. We make limoncello currently. And then most recently, some of you guys have heard Mike and I have talked back and forth over the last couple months. We had to pivot because most of our clients were closed, which are bars and restaurants primarily. And we had to figure out another direction to go in, and we did start making sanitizer. We took some time with it just to make sure that we were doing everything legally. We had all the appropriate permitting from the FDA so that we could continue to produce relatively long-term and continue to work to bring our prices down and also innovate and make some new products. And right now we are in the midst of that. Brand is called First Defense, and we're shipping direct to businesses online. We're donating 10% of our revenues back to both bartenders and servers, and then back to some chambers and some other organizations as well. We're getting ready to produce sanitizing wipes, which are in great shortage, like the Clorox wipes that you guys find. We had to take a lot of rigorous testing to get a permit with the EPA, and we're about to receive that permit, and that will make us one of 6 companies, from what I understand, across the US that is legally able to produce these sanitizing wipes. And that's my story.
Wow.
How is it that only 6 people have the right to do that in a country with 300 million people?
Yeah, so
what
I discovered in this experience was I learned a lot of really interesting stuff. Um, One thing was with respect to contract that some of the big companies have with major retailers. For example, your pharmacies, your CVS's, your Walgreens, your Costco's, your restaurant depots, a lot of these organizations. Um, there's shortages. Obviously, Purell is backed almost until September. Clorox Company is backed. It looks like December for wipes, and a lot of what they do is they basically price lock and buy the shelf space. And so while we're sitting here, a lot of different people are saying, they need these products to open, and they're worried about price gouging and things along those lines. There's really, for somebody else to get in and help and start producing product and generate money, because we're making investments when we do these things of time and money. There aren't so many avenues. The path is not that easy, and you would think it would be. I'm a pretty innovative guy, and I'm flexible. I pivot. I move. And despite all of that, the difficulties and the hurdles we ran into, just getting product to people, it's been incredible. So despite the fact that there's nothing on the shelves, so it's been an interesting path, and I think I'm sure everybody's learned a tremendous amount. You guys can hear me well, right?
Yes,
Okay, good.
Yes.
clear. So, Shyam, I mean, you've done a multiple pivots on
You know that.
different aspects of your business.
Yeah.
There's the one around the sanitizers and the use of the plant. So if you could touch on that, and then the one that's really intriguing, and I think that everybody on this call would appreciate tying to some aspect of their own business, is the pivoting that you did from Kazam to Fruitful.
Yeah.
And how you approached it. There's a great story there.
Sure.
Because you really had to focus on the customer and who your real customer is. And so that's
100%.
so touch on the East Hartford facility and the pivoting, but then I want to shift it, because I think everything you're doing from Kazam to Fruitful is tied into branding and everything else that we collectively are dealing with in our own businesses. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Sure. With respect to East Hartford, I think the way that I looked at it was, we're, as business owners, when you're in a situation that's kind of a sink or swim situation, you got to get that back to basics and figure out what are your core competencies, what are the core assets that you have, and how can you quickly innovate and work with regulators, work with your community to address those needs, and to do it, to see what you have and figure out a way to address the needs as quickly as possible. Now, in the COVID situation, it's a little bit different, being on full lockdown, not being able to, especially a lot of the people who perform services like barbers or hairstylists. Some of these things are a little bit more difficult, but for me, it was just really looking at that and trying to figure out a way. I think the other thing is also, when you're investing time and effort to make those changes, I didn't want to look at it like, okay, the community's in need, I have alcohol, let me just produce, use up my bottles, use up what I have just to produce a run of sanitizer and give it out to people and keep my fingers crossed that in 30 days everything's going to reopen and I come out looking like a hero. And to be honest with you, I know that businesses did that. I know that there were places that did that, but at the end of the day, when 90 days go by and you're running out of cash, and the government still hasn't stepped in and bailed you out, and you still don't know if you're going to open. I think it's important early on to do what you can for the community and simultaneously position yourself so that you can stay afloat. And that's what we did. We gave donations to every hospital in the state, but we also made sure that we were set up long term to be able to generate revenues and carry out a business. And we did that by just addressing the legalities of what we were doing and educating ourselves and taking the time and getting the permits, and that was our path with the Sanitizer in the East Hartford facility. With respect to what Mike was talking about, which is a company I used to have, and a product line I used to have, and a pivot that we made there. So basically, about 3 years ago, there was an innovation that myself and my partner came across, which allowed us to produce a juice-based flavoring that did not go bad. It had no artificial preservatives, but the product didn't go bad. We used alcohol in a unique way to preserve the integrity of our juice flavorings. And we launched a brand called Kazam. And what the idea was behind Kazam was that consumers would be able to flavor their beers and flavor cocktails in an affordable way. And at the time, the products had colorings and had some pretty straightforward flavors. We had a watermelon, a green apple, and we launched the product, and we took some paths, for example, going into the retail market as opposed to going into just bars and restaurants, and we made some mistakes. Basically, it didn't work. It wasn't working the way that we thought it would. And I think what Mike's referring to is simply, what we did at that point. And when we saw that the product wasn't working, we really put our heads down and tried to acquire as much data as we could. Why isn't it working? What was it that people would like to see changed or different than what we were doing? In the case of Kazam, what we learned was the market wanted simplicity. They wanted clean, really, really clean ingredients. They didn't want anything at all. They wanted no artificial color or even nothing in the products that degrade its integrity, basically. And we were able to simplify. They wanted exotic flavors. They wanted some. They didn't so much care about flavoring beers. They wanted to flavor cocktails, and basically we had to look at that and make assessments quickly, analyze the data, and commit to making a change instead of saying what we made will, no, this will work. And we were doing well in the South, but we were bombing in New England and in some other regions. And that pivot, that transition was a tough one, but we decided to rebrand as well, change the look of our packaging, and right now I'm presenting the product with a company called barproducts.com, which is the largest supplier to bars and restaurants, and we're hoping. They saw it yesterday, they love it, and we're planning on launching nationally when bars and restaurants reopen, and they're going to get behind us because we took the time to fix the problems that we had. So excited about that. Mike, was there anything else specifically with that?
No, I appreciate you walking through that. To me, every aspect of that is relatable to any business. And just a piece where, 'cause I know when you first launched Kazam and it was flashy, but
Sure.
yet now it's about simplicity
Absolutely.
yeah. And so what is really impressive is how you got there and the focus on who your real target
Yeah,
market is, and hearing them and seeing what they need. So I just like
absolutely.
that story because it applies to all of us.
Well, to add to that also, what was super important that we missed very early on is being laser focused on identifying who our customer is, why they're our customer, and how we hyper focus on giving that target exactly what they want in the best way possible. What we did was, as Mike said, absolutely, we had kind of a flashy product, and we won the state CADC top packaging award, judges award, and I thought I was the greatest thing ever. I'm like, this is great. I did this myself on a low budget, and I thought I was unstoppable. And then it wasn't working, and I was trying to satisfy everyone. I was trying to make something that worked for everybody. And a lot of I think a lot of colleagues and other business owners, I hear this kind of thing all the time. Matter of fact, my father's a dentist in Wethersfield, and he's unbelievable, amazingly educated, super hardworking guy. And after what happened with Kazam, I had this revelation that, I'm like, okay, I'm way too disparate. I'm not focused. I'm not really asking who is the person I'm trying to serve and hyper focusing. And I had a conversation with my father, because when we were talking, talking business, I started hearing some of the same things coming out of him, which was trying to satisfy everyone and trying to get all the patients and trying to do all the services. And, I saw my dad busting his ass, working 13 hours, 12 hours, and, being frustrated with some things that were happening in his business. And I had that conversation with him. I'm like, Dad, focus on who is the key patient that you can best serve, and how do you provide that person the best service that you can, and rather than trying to say, well, I got to satisfy this guy whose needs are this and satisfy the other guy. And I think having that switch was such a key thing for me and in everything that I'm doing. And I think putting your ego aside and taking the risk of making purpose-driven change, data-driven change is extremely important. And you got to keep asking those questions. And that's what I did. So
That's awesome. I'm gonna, with that, and again, relating it to any of your own businesses, forgetting about what type of business, this could apply to anything. Gonna open it up. If anybody has any questions for Shyam
Yep.
without a Y.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
I've been calling you by the wrong name for 3 years now.
I think you started and then it switched, and this happens over time.
I think I changed your name.
I'm comfortable with it, Mike. You can
Yes.
call me whatever.
Questions? Comments? I'm going to pick on somebody then.
I have one question.
Sure.
It's always when your daughter starts talking too.
I'm sorry I got way too loud.
It's okay. Is Kazam good in bourbon?
So, Kazam.
I just looked it up. It looks like it's a bitter of some type.
Yeah, Kazam is slowly ceasing to exist. So we just got a deal where we're unloading inventory we have down here, actually in Largo, where we've been selling for about 3 years, to breweries. To answer your question, no. However, my new product that's coming out, which is called Fruitful, and hopefully in a meeting in about a month's time, I'd love to show you guys everything that I'm launching. But the product called Fruitful, the website and information goes up in about 3 weeks. It's going to be awesome. We have flavors that work extremely well with all spirits, and the products are, I'm really proud of them. They're going to work well in bourbons, whiskeys, vodkas, gins, the whole 9 yards. So you guys
Gotta
will be.
hustle that up. I can use some right now.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Great.
Anything
Thanks,
else?
Thanks for jumping in, Dan. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Yeah, Shyam, Doug Smith. You said that you analyzed your customers in a data-driven way, and you sort of pivoted your business based on data and really understanding your customer. Can you talk
Sure.
more about how you gathered that and how you used that data?
Absolutely. So when we first started seeing signs of what I'll describe as failure, and I'm saying failure is relative to what I projected, we are grossly falling short. We sat down, asked ourselves, who do we think this customer is, who's buying the product? At the time, bartenders were the primary customer. It wasn't so much consumers let's say, going to a liquor store and purchasing the product. Bartenders were the number one person. So first thing we did was, both in Connecticut and in Florida, we reached out to USBG, which is the Bartenders Guild. And we had them, we organized sort of an event where we had 30 bartenders from each area come to these events and basically take surveys on the products. They did not know that we were the ones actually conducting this. So we had, fortunately, well, in my case, it became a little easier because I make vodka, I make other products. So I had them survey all of my products, but really the ones I wanted the data on was Kazam. And they were all invitations from accounts and places that already use the product. So they thought it was distribution doing it. They were really honest. I built the questionnaires, the surveys. It was pretty brutal, to be honest with you. I had to ask questions, that, I didn't necessarily want to hear the answers to some of the time. And that first test that we did, and mind you, you can hire a company that costs you $50,000, $100,000 to conduct some of these types of tests. They're out there. In my case, it's like, what can I do? I'm running out of cash. So what can I do cheaply, quickly, to quickly get data, to quickly get honest feedback from the people who have seen and touched and felt my product. So I built these surveys myself, organized these events, got a lot of information. After that, what we did was I reached out to 15 liquor stores here, and then in Florida as well. Well, we had like 20 in Florida. And we had some relationships with the store owners, so they knew which customers that came in and had bought the product. And we actually used them to disseminate kind of a survey also on the product. And in the case of a retailer, the customer is answering the question just by not coming and buying the product again, right? So I kind of have that data that's pretty clean and clear. But we basically conducted more surveys. We got about, I think it was 350 total surveys across bartenders and customers, and the data was extremely clear. I mean, I think as a chemist, from a broad spectrum, like statistical, scientific subset of data, it was actually small, but in this case, the quality of the data was extremely high because, you know, it was such a small user base to begin with. And we just got a lot of feedback, and it was clear. I mean, it became extremely clear what things we needed to change. It also became clear that focusing on somebody, in our case, focusing on somebody who was at home was a mistake altogether. We shouldn't have even looked at the retail market. We shouldn't have even considered it. Our focus now with the new iteration of the product is laser focused on the bartender. We know the market, we know the product the brands we're competing against. We know that our job is just to put it in their hands, and that's it. Do not worry about shiny object. And this, you know, I could be here, I could sell on this, I can go on Shark Tank. It's like none of these things matter. Find the bartenders, put it in their hands. That's all we need to be doing, and listen to them. And you know, so that's, if that answers your question, that's how we started. Yep.
Yeah, it does. I mean, a lot of times, like, it's easy to focus on, like you said, the metrics, the sales numbers, right?
Yeah.
The lagging metrics.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have sales. What do I do? But getting the information on why and what you can actually change is difficult. So that's great that you put the survey together and actually went out and put it in front of them.
I think getting honest information is also tough on your own. So, like, for example, you know, one of the number one things I hear in food and beverage, and even you know, let's say barbershops, my barber and people like that, you know, they'll say things like, restaurant owners, they'll say things like, oh, my customers love my product. They love the food. They love everything about it. I don't know why no one's here. I don't know why this isn't working. And, you know, it's easy to get caught in that loop. You know, it's really easy to get caught in that. You got to create a barrier between you and your customer and ask honest questions, find a way to really honestly get feedback. And, you know, I think that's another thing that people don't do. I didn't go and hand this to the person themselves, because if I was looking at them, I guarantee you everybody would have said, this is the best product in the world. I love it. Love it. And I'm like, okay, you know, then what's the problem here? Like, but you want to create as many, you know, walls as you can so you get honest feedback. And frankly, like, I think doing that with some regularity is good, even when things are going well, because I think there can always be things you tweak and change. You could be doing better, you know, so.
That's great. One of my closing questions was going to be share something, you know, share a tip that applies to all of us, and you just nailed it right there. So
that's it.
Thank you for jumping ahead. Thank you for jumping. Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions for Shyam while we have?
I just think, you know, when you have a product, you can really gather that data more easily than when you're providing a service. And a lot of people on the call, including the chamber, are service providers. So to gather that data is a little more difficult. Any suggestions on how to do that?
It depends how sneaky you want to get, right? Like, I mean, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, something I'm trying to just transpose myself, put myself into another business. Let's say I was a barber. I'm just using that as an example, not picking on anybody who's here, but let's say I was a barber. And I wanted to find out what my customers really thought about the service I was providing. You know, I have a Facebook list, right? I probably have 500,000, 1,500 followers. Maybe you have a friend or somebody else create another account and reach out and say, hey, you know, we wanted an honest assessment of this person. I'm thinking about going to them. Just a thought. Yeah, I mean, I'm going way left field, but, you know, I think there's ways if you want to create those walls, like I said, that you can do it and get some honest feedback. And You just have to be prepared to not like what you're going to hear some of the time. And other times you're so surprised. People say wonderful things, and you can put some weight on that because you weren't standing looking over their shoulder. So maybe using a strategy like that, you
I
know.
didn't need to put you on the spot. I just know you're a great thinker and you might come up with something, which
I
you did.
appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's exactly where I would start. That's the first thing I would do. You have your customer list. So you know who your customers are. You have appointment books, you have whatever your service industry is. All you got to do is hand that off to somebody else. Yes, you don't want to hand over someone's data, all their phone numbers, their emails, things like that. But yeah, can somebody put together a third party pose as being somebody else and go and ask a question? Once you bang out 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of them, you're going to start getting a good sense of the value of that data and the value of whether or not what the strategy you're using to acquire that data makes sense, you know, and then maybe you need to shift it or change it a little bit. But service can be really difficult because I think in service industries, it's very personal. There's a lot of there is ego, there is care, there is all these things tied to when a transaction takes place. And yes, I think acquiring good data can be really difficult, but I think it's the most important in that space because, you know, that's you got to know, you know, in that space, because what you're doing is so personal so often. So
You know, I think if you're not open to getting the bad news, you're not going to improve your business ever.
yeah,
You're only fooling yourself. And the reason you're gathering the data is to learn how you can improve.
One other approach on the service side,
sure.
and we use this in my career, Pratt Whitney, and I think it applies to any service business, is to, and this isn't setting up walls, it's a different approach, is
Sure.
to benchmark best in class in what you do in your particular service arena. And we would do, so for example, we would go out to companies like Caterpillar, which were just amazing what they did in quality and safety and then in services as well. And we would benchmark them and go visit them. And if you do that and open up your mind, again, if you assume you're doing it the best, you'll never get better from it. But if you look at what the best in class is doing and compare that to the things you do, you can always improve. And so that's another approach that could be a good approach for the chamber, to go look at best in class in every aspect of what the chamber does. So who does it better? And you'll find that you are best in class in some areas. In other areas, there's others that are doing it better. So that's just an example that applies to anybody that's on this call.
Yeah, I love that.
Ellie, Ellie's on mute. You have a question, Ellie?
No, I wanted to add to some comments. The internet can help him with that goal very easily and free even. In one way, you can just Google survey, create survey. And there are like a million free survey things. You can send them around to if you have contact information of your customers, you can create a survey. We are sincere about pleasing you, okay? Tell us what we can do, and then create your survey questions and send it around. You'll get ridiculous feedback and also an opportunity to advertise your business. Show them you're sincere about giving them a better deal than the other guy. And it helps to bring you, heighten your experience of life in your business. And also, most of the big places like Yelp and Google and all that, they have reviews where your business is listed all over the internet. A lot of them automatically include reviews. A lot of the reviews are spam and junk and keep fooling around. You should go and look at your reviews online and see what's there about you and clean it up, because you have a right to protect yourself against spam and slander. And you see, if you go to one of these sites and you see that somebody's been having fun at your expense, there's a place to click to have it removed, because you have a right to protect the integrity of your business. But a couple of tools like that usually get pretty good feedback. The sending out a survey it's not really that much work. You could do it in an evening easily. When you're doing other things, when you have a break, think about what questions you might put in the survey.
Yeah,
Okay?
thank you.
That's a good.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great comment. We've actually used surveys to through the chamber quite often, and some get really good response. Others, it depends on what's going on at the time. You may not get a lot of feedback, but we've done it for the networking groups, and it's what really drove how we approach networking. So those are great points. I also will tell you that when I was at Pratt Whitney, we surveyed every airline in the world on our services. You want to talk about getting brutally honest feedback, because they all used it as a lever to get what they need.
Yeah.
So surveys are definitely a good tool for that, just like Shyam used for himself. I saw Jim.
Yeah.
Jim, you had a question.
Yeah, I think what Mike was also referring to is Pratt Whitney example. And sometimes, this is, I think, good advice. I always talk about this with people, and when I'm smart enough, I actually take the advice myself. And that is, whoever is doing what you want to do, and they're doing it really well, there's nothing wrong with finding out who they are and modeling that absolute success that they do. This guy Shyam, I mean, it takes about 30 seconds of you talking to realize that you are quite an intelligent, smart business person. And when I'm down there, which will be sooner than later, I'll connect with you and just meet up with you and share some ideas. Because I think talking with and being around people that are already doing what you want to do, modeling some of that success, is just so beneficial and everything. And I just want to show people, if I can share the screen for 1 sec, the difference between where Shyam is and Connecticut. Hold on. Can you guys see this beach? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like
All right,
Clearwater.
that's Clearwater Beach. Shyam, what is that, about 15 minutes from you?
About 12 and a half. Yeah.
All right, 12 and a half, even better. You got some great places to get to know bartenders' hands over there,
Yes, sir.
Great
Yes,
place.
sir.
But thank you for everything you brought to this meeting tonight. Amazing.
Oh, super nice of you. Anytime for sure. And just putting it out there. I'm constantly always trying to learn and get better. I'm really happy to talk to. I spoke with Mary Ellen at several different points, and I'm sure she can attest to this. I'm more than willing to have these types of conversations with anybody at any time, because I'm always learning, and there's always something maybe I can offer from my experience. So feel free to reach out, and I'm available. And in about, let's say, 2 months to July 1st, everybody's drinking some vodka with me, okay? And some Fruitful and all that. And we're going to be clean with our sanitizer too, all of that.
Do you want to, Shyam, you want to put your contact information in the chat?
Yeah, if I can figure out this is actually my first Zoom call.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not going to, yeah.
People could actually say that now?
I may have conducted business as usual since this started, so I
have 2 Florida clients. I can attest to that. Like one in Tampa is like, I don't know what you're talking about, Chris.
I'm just like, look, I got to do what I have to do, and I'm going to do it. So, okay, I'm in chat. Yeah, I'll put my contact information in here. You can reach me at, Defense.com. And I'll put my phone number in there as well. Feel free, anybody can text me at any time and set up a phone call, and I'm always available. Did you guys get that?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I always find it so energizing to be around entrepreneurs and where the chamber's loaded with them. And it's always great to get fresh ideas about how to improve our own businesses, and just to listen to the innovation and the pivoting and survival of businesses today. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yes,
Yeah, Mike, I love hearing from you as well. Just letting you know, because I think the corporate experience you had, and we barely touched on that over at Pratt, and then being tied to a smaller business salon. I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of invaluable knowledge that would benefit me, myself, and anyone. But really awesome. I love those tie-ins. I'm sure a lot of things you saw at Pratt can be applied, to a business that's not at that scale. Also, the same principles, and I think sometimes we forget that as well. That
right.
Fundamentals count. Yeah.
And I know you have some good initial connections into Pratt. So, but
how do you know?
I visited your plant yesterday while you were on the beach.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yeah. Today.
I need to connect you with the Jeff Bridgman. He heads up all the facilities. He'd be a good guy for you to tap into.
Absolutely. Yeah. I should find out today about Pratt. So
yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been like Mary Ellen, speaking with entrepreneurs is really awesome. I think you should consider getting involved when they relaunch again. The Glassbury High School has an entrepreneur program. The chamber provides mentors into that program. You probably have some a good time mentoring some high school students, and they would probably come out with real businesses with you being there. So that would be great.
I love it.
Yeah. And with that, we're ready to move on to the rest of the day. I'm all inspired. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm gonna go pivot.
Yeah.
Go pivot. Get some stuff
done now. So
yes.
I'm gonna go add something to my coffee, I think.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm getting right to that.
Right.
I think it's a new brand of coffee
going back here. So.
Oh, nice.
So Shyam, thank you so much.
No problem.
Best of luck with everything. I'll be in touch with you anyway. And
thanks
everybody for being on the call. I hope to see you on Wednesday. Tomorrow. Oh my God.